I'm trying to like make the bridge between like home and therapy happen, like that generalization that we always talk about in meetings that we're like, they know what to do, but they just aren't doing it. So I have parents come in the last part of the session. We talk about strategies. We talk about things that are working, things that aren't. We go over strategies that we worked on in session that they can work on at home. Because I was a teacher before, I'm very I like to write things out and make visuals and draw things. So I have a whiteboard in my offices that I use to kind of like chart out different parts, where we're looking at triggers. What are our feelings? What are our strategies? And so a lot of times that's like kind of the tool with parents of like, these are the things we talked about. And I always get the child's permission first with confidentiality. And so, we work as a team. So like kids approve what they want me to share with parents. So I don't break confidentiality and keep that relationship. But then I can also let the parent know, like, here's what you can do at home to support what we're doing in counseling. So there's a higher chance of generalization and for it to be effective.
Welcome to the Empower LEP Collaborative Podcast, a podcast to empower, inspire, and collaborate with aspiring and practicing licensed educational psychologists and like-minded professionals. We're your hosts, Jana Parker and Bethany Zoller, bringing professionals together to talk business, private practice, and find inspiration from our community.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Empower LEP Collaborative Podcast. My name is Bethany Zoller.
And I'm Jana Parker.
And we are excited to meet another new LEP friend, Meredith Gleason. Welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. So I know you and Jana have some history together, but you and I have not met. So I'm going to try and get to know you today. So tell me about you. How do you LEP? Where are you? What's your business name? Give us the 411.
Yeah, absolutely. So my company is called Empower Child Learning. We have an office in San Diego and in Temecula. So like Southern California area. And, I would say I've been in practice since 2019. I was kind of like doing the splits between district and LEP life at first. After having my first kid, I was, seeing the need for like a different pace of life and a different schedule. I was a teacher before I was a psychologist. So I'd been in the schools for about 15 years until I formally left. And so, over time I was building up my clientele and spaces. And then, right when I was ready to launch fully into it, COVID hit.
Mm-hmm. It was like during our, didn't that happen? Yeah. During when we were working together in our little cohort.
Yeah. And Business Blueprint. Yeah. When we were doing that with Jenny and Kristen, and I remember listening to an earlier episode when Jana, you were saying that like you were already doing your practice and, Bethany, I think you were as well, when you took the business class, but like I was just like starting everything. And so I had the epic timing of like, hey, it's late 2019. I'm going to get this going and we're going to blast off in 2020. And then, the world shut down. So that made things really hard and challenging. And then we got pregnant with our second child. And that made things more complicated. And so, we ended up moving to Temecula in 2021, my family, after being in San Diego for, over 10 years. And I'd previously done my teaching in LA. So I've been kind of in districts from LA to San Diego. And so when we moved to Temecula, after like housing prices and all the things, bigger family, need more space. I knew that was like, I felt like that was my time. If I was going to jump, it was the time to fully jump into the private world and not continue to do the splits. And originally it was I'll work part-time, with two, young kids and then slowly work my way back into full-time. It ended up being like, oh, just kidding. After like 6 months, you're going to be full-time because there's such a need and things are growing so rapidly, which is really exciting, but also was very like overwhelming, trying to spin all the plates. But I feel like it forced me to get over that fear of like, I can leave the district. I'm going to be okay.
Yep. So at your practice, what are your services like? What are you offering to at your, you have two branches, is that what you said?
Yeah, we have two locations. Yeah, an office in San Diego, and then in Temecula, like Murrieta area. So we offer a few different services. We do diagnostic assessment and IEEs and psychoeducational testing. We can do targeted evaluations like at ADHD or autism, things like that. And then we also do counseling and like parent coaching. I wouldn't like brand myself as a parent coach, but something I've learned and really like embraced that I didn't think was going to be part of like my niche, but has become it, is like working with families, specifically like moms and their children. And so like in the schools, you're like giving educationally, you're staying in your lane, right? In the schools, and you're giving educationally related advice. And then going into private, I found there was such a high request from moms for like guidance. How do I help my kid with homework? How do I help my kid get ready in the morning? How do I manage their ADHD? What do I do that now that they know he has dyslexia? Like, you know, what are the next things to do? And then with counseling, I always have loved counseling. I know some psychs are like, oh, no, get that away from me. No, thank you. Counseling's not my jam. Totally respect that. But I love counseling. I was kind of in a district before where we like wore all the hats as psychs. So we were like gen ed counseling, 504 coordinator, IEP tester, and IEP counseling services. So I had to do counseling so much that, you know, I actually really enjoy it. Yeah.
I enjoy it too. Jana, she's not going to join that group.
Just wasn't focused.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all have our things, right, that we like are passionate about, and part of getting your own private practice is you get to decide what things you want to make your passions and kind of your niche, and then things you want to be like, let somebody else do that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, for me, the advocacy piece, no, thank you. That's not for me. I'm happy to refer people to advocates. But that's never been part of who I want to be in the private realm. But back to your question, sorry, bird walking a little bit.
Okay.
Because I loved counseling and have done it for so long, I wanted to keep that in our practice. And so I do the in-person counseling, and then we have an LEP who does virtual counseling. And then we're getting another LEP to do more in-person counseling in San Diego to help with, you know, balancing everybody and getting everybody in. But what's really come out of it that I've really grown to love is working with moms or dads, I mean, parents and their children. And so like, rather than having them like go to counseling, I talk with them one-on-one, and then I send them out the door and like, good luck. When you get in the car and ask what you did, they're going to be like, nothing, you know, or we played a game, and the parent's going to be like, what did I pay for? So I'm trying to like make the bridge between like home and therapy happen, like that generalization that we always talk about in meetings that we're like, they know what to do, but they just aren't doing it. So I have parents come in the last part of the session. We talk about strategies. We talk about things that are working, things that aren't. We go over strategies that we worked on in session that they can work on at home. Because I was a teacher before, I'm very like, I like to write things out and make visuals and draw things. So I have a whiteboard in my offices that I use to kind of like chart out different parts, you know, where we're looking at triggers. What are our feelings? What are our strategies? And so a lot of times that's like kind of the tool with parents of like, these are the things we talked about. And I always get the child's permission first with confidentiality. And so, you know, we work as a team. So like kids approve what they want me to share with parents. So I don't break confidentiality and keep that relationship. But then I can also let the parent know, like, here's what you can do at home to support what we're doing in counseling. So there's a higher chance of generalization and for it to be effective. And so that's kind of helped, or not helped, like I would say almost like pushed me to learn more about parenting strategies and different, like obviously I want to because I'm a parent too, but like, you know, when there's more of a need with certain groups I'm working with, I'm seeing that like, okay, if I can be more empowered as an LEP and knowing what parenting strategies are research-based and are ones that we can put into practice, then I see better progress for my kids, which is like why we do what we do, right? To help kids. Right. So, my own son is neurodivergent. I'm neurodivergent. So I think that also has helped me connect with parents and their children and just understanding like nobody really prepares you to navigate that world. Or, there's no like, you read a baby book or parenting book, but there's no, there's obviously resources out there about how to approach an IEP as a parent, but can feel really overwhelming. And so helping parents do that has actually been something I never thought I would do when I was working in the schools, but actually really, really enjoy.
Yeah, I found it so much easier, I feel like, to work with parents in this, just in this way, because they are really open rather than being, I don't know, like kind of skeptical. I got a lot of that in the schools. But just like a logistical question, do you would your counseling for kids wrap in that parent component in the same session, or are they paying like something additional? Just logistically, how does that work?
Yeah, so I do it in the same session. I do have some parents that want to do like one full session with their child, one full session with me, because there's a lot to unpack. So, the hybrid option, it's usually what we call it. So it's the parent or the child counseling piece and then the parent component. That's usually just how I do my typical counseling for all kids. And that's how the LEPs that work with me do that too. And so if there's a situation where that's not appropriate for a child or parent, then obviously we would troubleshoot it, but it's not a separate fee. It's all embedded. Good question.
I do mine very similar to what you, except I do it flip-flop. We start as a unit. And debrief on like how the week has been and see if there's anything to wins to celebrate together and things I need to work on. And then I kick the parents out for I'd say almost split it in half. I don't know how you divide your time, but I guess it also depends on the day.
Totally. And sometimes we do flip it. If like the parent comes in and like, there's that look, you're like, oh, come on back. Let's talk about it. And sometimes it's like, oh, okay, let's work on these strategies and then share it after, you know what I mean? So it really kind of depends. And, so in terms of timing, once again, if I know a parent often has more questions or they're newer to the process, it might be like they come in, like there's a 50-minute session, they might come in the last 25 minutes or 20 minutes. And then if there's a parent that we've been like, we kind of do this, we've been together for a while, the unpacking and the debriefing is like kind of streamlined, it might be just 10 or 15 minutes.
I love it. No, that's so cool. I agree. Like, I just feel like it's so much more effective to bring the family in. I have a client that I've had for, honestly, we could be done, but he's almost going to graduate from high school. So I'm like, that's fine. We'll just see it through to the end.
Definitely.
But I teased that the thing that I taught them, not necessarily it's mental health related, but was how to fight fair. And that was, like conflict resolution was what I did with this family. And now it was really fun because they can have a disagreement and there's no screaming.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's so cool. It feels way more effective to me than what I did in the schools. So
well, and just the time you have to do that. Like, you see these parents at annual IEPs and you're like, good luck. And then, you see teachers in the hallway and you're like, or email them, this is what we learned in counseling. And, there's just so many things happening. It just, I don't know. And like, I know as, my child has pursued private resources, like it's so nice to be included. Like I loved going to OT sessions and being like, what are you doing? Ooh, what does this do? What is this teaching him? Oh, this is fascinating. So I always tell my husband, if I come back as anything else in my life, I want to be an OT because their job is so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Very cool. So you've got two offices. You've got at least 3 people working for you?
Yes.
There's 3. And then, so how did you market? Like, how did you get clients? How did you let people know that you were around?
Yeah, great question. I feel like it's been like a bunch of different things culminating that have really helped. I would say a lot of it was like timing and connections and like utilizing resources. So, I know you guys had talked about this on previous podcasts, your relationship with schools and districts and personnel like really goes a long way because they refer you and, that can carry referrals most definitely. And then I also think networking opportunities were super effective, like joining a networking group. There's, even Facebook groups I've joined, and that's how I found an office space, and, talking with other, psychologists, or providers, whether it's just kind of like looking locally and stopping by, or like going to specific events. But what I would say is, like, it happened over time, because when I left in 2021, the district, I contracted out with a mental health practice that had, like psychiatrists, MFTs, like doctors, like it was kind of like a concierge medical service that prioritized mental health. And so I feel like I learned a lot about going to their marketing events and being a part of that marketing program, about how to network, develop relationships, and then, relationships from that carried over when I, ended that contract and completely, went out independently. And, I also think making sure that people don't forget you're out there. So I'm working on that piece, because, I just met with actually my digital marketing person earlier this morning, and we're going to update my newsletter template, and things that I'm not good at, I really have to delegate out. And that's been, I think, what's helped me move forward in my business, is I'm not going to take the time to learn how to do a website. It's far better use of my time to delegate that to somebody else, have someone guide me through marketing, so then I can be on the front end, returning calls and, following up on inquiries, so that we can make sure that parents get a quick turnaround in getting their questions answered, and finding out if I'm the right fit, or if our services are the right fit. So I don't know if that really answered your question. It's kind of a lot of random things.
So I have a question, just it's personal interest, because I'm hiring my first LEP to help me out with, she just wants to work a couple of evenings doing some counseling and do some assessments on the weekends for me. But this is the part that I'm stuck with. So I want your input. So I always do all of the consultations, so they get to know me and they know my personality. How do we do it so that it's the right fit for her? Since she's,
Yeah.
I mean, should I be setting consultations up with her then and say or do a free first visit to see if it's a good fit, or what would you recommend?
It's a great question. So what we've been doing is, either depending on, some parents have contacted me and they're we want to do virtual therapy. And I'm I'm not doing it anymore, but I have somebody who does. And so then if they already know me, I just pass them along. In that regards, if they're not able to do the in-person, which is, what I'm sticking to, trying to, not try to do everything,
Yeah.
which is really hard for us. But, and then with consults, either together doing consults at the same time, we have a consult form, and I have a procedures, Google manual that we have with different ways to complete consult, to do SOAP notes, to do billing and, documentation and all those kind of things. And to be transparent, we're in the early stages of that. So we're kind of doing it case by case basis. But my goal would be to have her be completely doing it independently. Because I agree, sometimes if I do a consult, the family's oh, but we wanted you because we talked to you. And then, if I continue saying yes, then, that's not going to be feasible. Right.
And I say yes too many times. That's why I need another person. So I'm
right.
I don't know, because she has a full-time gig. So I'm okay, she's not available so I don't know if I want to make a meet and greet or something.
You need to just take the whole thing off of your plates, ladies. You have to let it go.
What do you mean?
You should not be the person who is taking the intake calls.
Oh,
that's what I mean.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, just kind of farming out marketing, right?
Yeah.
You got to think about the things that it was so hard for me to let go of, not taking the intakes, because then another thing that happens is, you know that you're going to sell your services better than anybody else's, right? So you run the risk of not getting the business if you let somebody else take it over. But if you can put enough time into helping to train somebody, it's never perfect, but like, if you can free up that time, I think a lot of things that people don't realize is just how much time that upfront work like how much work you have to do in order to actually get the paying client for whatever it is. And so after years of doing this and like me doing it, then hiring somebody else, then me doing it, then another person who didn't work out, then me doing it, then someone else. Now I think I've finally gotten in a groove. And because another thing is they want you. If somebody calls and talks to you, they want you to do it. It's your practice. But I have really like offloaded that to somebody else. And then we offer, because if somebody is actually doing a consult with you, we call a consult like, this is me helping you figure out what you need. And if you want to pay for a psychologist time to help you figure out what you need, then you can pay for that session. But we'll do like a quick, like the intake person should be doing primarily like the questions that everybody has up front. But then what we offer is I do have one full-time psychologist, because sometimes people do need to talk to somebody else, right? So if you are the only full-time person, then maybe that person is you. If as like the second tier, right? Like some people are like, I really want to better understand this assessment process, and they know that it would be better to talk to somebody who actually does the work. So then I have a full-time psychologist who will take those calls and give parents like 15, 20 minutes on the phone.
That's what we do. We do 20-minute consults. And then after that, if it goes beyond that, then I tell them to make it a formal appointment.
Right. Good.
But I do agree with you, like, because, if I have, 4 or 5 20-minute consults during the week, that like eats into time, and then you're taking notes, and then you're sending paperwork. And so, no, I think that's a really valid point. And that's definitely, I think, a goal for me to get those more streamlined. But yeah, because they can be really time consuming.
And then like following up, like going back through the list and being like, oh, who didn't we hear back from? All of that, keeping track of everything, not bugging people, but like seeing if they need you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
What advice would you give on like, because I'm a control freak, what advice would you give on helping us like transfer that like consultative approach or intake approach? Like any tips would be welcome.
Yeah. Doing a lot of modeling, so like sometimes, so I would ask parents, like, is it okay if I record this conversation for training purposes?
It's a great idea.
That kind of thing. And sometimes I would do Zooms, and phone calls, and, maybe even like take out, put it on speaker or whatever, like for there. Do you mind if I have my, intake specialist in on this call, that kind of stuff, so that you can really model the language, because this is not easy stuff to talk about. And especially
100%
hiring somebody who knows nothing about what we're doing, they need a lot of exposure. So I did a lot of that kind of stuff to train this new person. And God, if she left right now, I would just be in a world of hurt. But yeah, it takes a long time. It's not easy, and there are going to be mistakes, but getting that time back has been worth letting go of the control. At least for the initial conversations, right? At least like when the phone rings and you're like, I should answer this, because if I don't answer it, they're going to call somebody else and that person might answer, right? So if you can at least even have somebody answering the phones and taking initial information, and then having that person, like if that person needs a consult with you, setting it up on your Calendly link for specific available time, so that you can block that time out too, so that you're not just like randomly taking calls throughout the day. And
that's the hardest part for me, is that I always tease that I only get calls when I'm in session. That's when my phone rings, is when I can't answer it. So Meredith, what I'm hearing is you and I need to go in together on a virtual assistant to answer our calls and organize.
Yes. I love this plan. Yeah.
I think it's
here
perfect.
for it.
Or maybe Jana can just lend us hers.
Well, I pay
You have a real person.
I
have a
do
live person.
Real person. She's here. She's here.
In office. That's great.
No, just kidding.
Oh, but what I was going to say is, you can also, I don't know if you have this already, but you can have a Calendly link on your website that just sign up for a time to talk.
Yeah. Yes, we are in the process of doing that. We've had like all these scheduling changes with like my family life. And so I feel like I'm like, wait, do I have this time available? Do I not? But we're getting back into a streamline where I need to like commit to, this is going to be the time every week that I have available for like those consults that I need to be present for. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with like what you're saying, Jana, about like training somebody and having someone be proficient in taking those. And then that would force me to have that Calendly commitment.
Yeah.
I do it through my Simple Practice EHR. You can set up your availability and then make it so that they can book straight through. And so that's how I do mine.
Okay. Yeah. I have Simple Practice. I am one of those people where like I am terrible about exploring all the tools and tips and tricks that are available. And then I feel like my schedule changes week to week. So I'm always like, what if I have to change that? And that's like, I'm like, if I had a consistent hour or two every week that I knew I was always going to be available, it'd be like, this would be it. And then I also
up with something because we know it's always available.
Well, and then I'll get something and then I'll double book or something will happen or I'll forget to change it if I'm out that week.
Yeah, no, that's it.
I have a question, Bethany, about that because I don't use that feature. So maybe this will help Meredith too. For on Simple Practice, because we haven't set up like availability like that. Does someone have to be a client already to set up a consult call?
No. So you can, on your calendar settings, you can select availability, and then you can put in blocks of time that people can have that availability. The only thing is you need to make sure in your settings that you have a service that is consultation that's free or whatever for the time block. And then when you set up your availability calendar, you say that is the only thing that they can schedule.
Right.
And so it goes through whatever is Monarch or something like that is their scheduling thing. But yeah. And then it sends it to you and you have to confirm it and you can send them like a little intake document and be like, what are we consulting about to kind of get a little background.
Okay. And so they don't put their information in.
They kind of have to make like an initial, like they log in and they say they're not a current client and it'll take like the client information, date of birth, phone number, email, and just that much demographic information. And then it sends you that you've gotten an appointment request and you can either confirm it or you can reschedule it or whatever.
Okay.
So I get some that way, but most people try to call me and I just don't answer my phone because I'm already doing something, so I can't.
Yeah, I get a lot of traction through my website because it has like almost a similar setup. It has like the name, information, phone number, email, all that, and then like what they're looking for, an age range, and things like that. But the scheduling feature isn't there, and then it's like I have to reply. But I also know my marketing guy's like, you need to do your Calendly. So he's been bugging me for a while. It's my problem. It's a goal.
What's your website, Meredith, if we want to check out what you do?
Yeah, it's empowerchildlearning.com, all one word. And then there's, descriptions of who we are and what we do and addresses of different locations. And then there's, a spot where you can fill out inquiries, sign up for a newsletter, which is going to be redesigned soon.
Goals.
Yes, exactly.
So you've been LEPing for about 5 years-ish. What would you say were your big, like, milestone moments or wins that you need to celebrate?
Yeah, definitely. I think, having the courage to leave the district was a huge win for me. I was in a district for in a small district for 10 years in San Diego area. And I was like, comfortable with my job, but like I wasn't in love with it anymore. You know what I mean? Like I love the kids, and that, working with kids has never been the problem. There's a lot of other things that happen in the district world. And so I think like believing that, okay, like I can do this, like, even though I don't have a lot of business training and, like we're, dual income household, like just having the courage to take that risk and then making it work has been really rewarding. And it feels like a really big win. And then I would say, being able to be completely independent and not like contracting with anybody, and bringing in those private clients straight to my business, has been really rewarding as well. And like, I would say one of the most recent ones is, just like getting together with my team. We did like a team lunch in San Diego, a couple weeks ago, and I'm just so lucky. Like I couldn't do things without them. They're just awesome. And they're, some of them I worked with previously, and some of them I've met through, good opportunities and connections. And, they do a lot of the things that like are not my strength, so that I can do the things that fill my bucket and make me want, to keep growing the business and moving forward and helping kids.
I love it. So if we could go back to the Meredith of 2019, the pre-LEP Meredith, what advice or encouragement would you give her?
I would just say, there's just do it. Like, I don't know, just Nike, just do it. I just have, I grew up with imposter syndrome and just like not believing in myself, for a variety of different reasons. And even though like I had validation in a lot of work scenarios, like I just didn't, think it was going to happen. And, you hear people be like, you just got to do it and everything will fall into place. And I'm like a very like, but will it for me? And I need to know plans, and I need to know date. I need to know what's going to happen, not just tomorrow, but a month from now and 2 weeks, 2 years from now. And so I had to like really just let that go. And I would say between COVID, moving, having a second kid, leaving, like choosing to fully leave the district, like all of those things, I just was like, okay, this is just chaos and I'm just going to run with it and I'm going to make this happen. And, so I would just say, if this is what you want to do, like pursue it. Don't think that it's not possible. Cause it definitely is. And, I'm making the same amount of money I was making in district. So it's not like a financial burden. It does take time. And then I would say outsource too. Like, I like to do everything myself. And then once I started outsourcing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. Yeah. And I can actually do the things that create more business and move things along. And now because of Jana, I'm going to work on intake specialist.
Yeah.
Doing some of those things.
Yes. Good.
I love it. Did you have any extra questions, Jana?
No, I think this was a great conversation. I'm so happy for you. And, it's just like you're singing the same song, I think we even had another Just Do It on here.
We did. You are saying Just Do It.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. We have a theme.
Yeah.
I love it.
I had a couple questions for you, Jana, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
So I would say one of my like dream kind of end goals would be to have like a multidisciplinary practice. So like listening to your episodes and talking about it, I was like, yes. I was like, snapping my fingers, like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do with my life. And it was so cool to hear that you have, created this amazing practice and opportunity, because I feel, one thing I love about my team is I miss being around other practitioners, and I miss that like IEP team full picture. And so I would love to have like the educational specialist, speech, OT, like, have that well-rounded approach for families and provide those services and have, different professionals giving input. What would you say is a good like step for people that are currently LEPs and looking to kind of branch into a multidisciplinary practice?
Oh, what a good question. And I also just realized that my microphone was so far away from me. Do I sound better now or the same?
Same.
Same.
Okay, cool. because I was like, oh, what's it doing way over there? So I love having a multidisciplinary team. What I really love is that I have an office where I actually get to see those other people when they're here and when we don't have clients, which is a huge change for me in the past. I guess it's been like 6 months because we moved in here July 1st. And before that, I just had these 2 separate offices on a hallway, and now I have a suite. So my team is actually like, if I open my door, I will see somebody, you know, which is really nice. That has really created this sense of community where we get to see each other and cross paths. I guess it's happened kind of organically that I've gotten these different people who have wanted to come and work with me. So that's been really nice. And it's been mostly through connections, people that I've either known or somehow got to know, and then they're looking to come into a group practice. There are a couple of, it's actually very, I was just talking to somebody else about this today. It's very difficult because a lot of those people are going to do kind of hourly work. And as the business owner, I feel charged with making sure that they have enough business. And that's a lot. Like trying to fill hours is a lot of work. And so it's harder to fill 20 hours of that person versus one assessment of 20 hours. Right. So it's easier for me to get the business. And then you have to see like, well, where am I going to put my marketing efforts? Right. So building it kind of has depended on how much the person has wanted to, well, a couple things, how much the person has wanted to take on kind of selling themselves to parents. Like if we get a call, if we get an inquiry for executive function coaching, my executive function coach is all over that. Like she wants to talk to the people, like she wants to, right? So, but you know, then I'm paying her for her time as she's doing that, but it's helping to get, you know, she's selling herself and she's getting that business and she's filling up. Whereas other people, like I don't want everybody to have to do that. That's why I have an intake specialist, right? I have her be able to schedule people, but that's kind of besides the point. To answer like your question is in terms of that multidisciplinary feel. So sometimes, so we're not doing it so much on assessments unless we need to like tie in the speech and language. Like I'm not usually bringing in my ed specialist on assessments. We're doing them all as the psych ourselves. But a lot of times we're then able to like refer to the different people on the team, which is then really effective and helpful. We get to keep it all in house. The parents feel like they already trust us. They're happy to go to the person next door. You know, they've come here for a reason and then they get to stay and it's nice. That said, we don't have everything and we're not huge. So we often have to refer out, but it's nice to be able to have it in house and like see those kids come back and see them making progress and having them feel like part of our team community. And it's just been really nice to have like the camaraderie and the, like you were saying, like you took your team out for lunch or whatever, and you got to like bond with them. It is so nice to have a team that can bounce ideas off of each other or talk about a student or ask a question, you know, to try to figure out how to help. So that has been really fantastic. It's also like something that I really, as a business owner, want to keep up on in terms of like making sure that my staff feel valued and like that they get to live, like even though they're working here, my goal is for them to be able to do the kind of work that they want to do rather than just the work that comes through the door, right? So if it's an IEE and I want to give it to somebody, I vet it first to make sure they're comfortable with it.
We do that too.
Yep. If it's like a, you know, speech and language, just anything, I just want to make sure that like, this is a case that this person feels good about, or I'm not going to give you a math if your specialty is reading, right? And I feel like that has really helped. I'm also trying to help them like, well, what else could you do? What else do you want to do? Do you want to do parent ops? Do you want to do an online course? Do you want to have like a virtual parent group that you run, just whatever.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun. I don't know if I answered your question. Did I answer the question that you had?
No, you did. Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes sense. I'm just trying to see how, can you still hear me?
Yes. Bethany,
Okay,
you
sorry.
said something that I couldn't hear.
Yeah.
I was asking Jana if they were all, how do you hire them? Are they all employees or are they contractors or?
They're all employees, and it's kind of a risk because like I don't have a full caseload for them. Like it takes a long time before you actually like make any profit off of somebody who you hire as an employee. Like you have to work they would have to work several sessions in order for you to even recoup the overhead, right? But that said, I want them to feel like they're part of this team. I am working to support them, right? Because or else they would just go out on their own and do it themselves, right? Which many people do, or think like, oh, I can just go do this myself. Oh, I'm like, okay, well, I am actually putting all the money toward marketing, and I am actually going out and doing the networking in the community.
Yeah.
I am the one going to the private schools. I am getting this business, right? So you want to go and do it yourself? Go do it yourself, But the team that I have now is amazing. And like, I take it upon myself to be like getting that business. So I'm like taking the risk of bringing them on as employees. And I believe in each and every one of them. So I'm just like, okay. And they're committed to that. Like I know now from hiring people that I should hire people who want to, and I think I said this in my thing, like I want to hire people who want to work in a group practice, not people who want to just kind of like do this for a little bit and then take it and run.
Yeah, no, those are really good points. Yeah, I think it takes a while. And then, I think I would love to have like, I don't know if Bethany, you do this, but we do groups, like social groups and things like that, or self-regulation or empowerment groups. And like those kind of things, I'd love to like hire, people to like do those and make those more of like a more frequently optioned kind of thing versus like we're finding pockets and holes in our schedule to do those things. And then, I used to do like social groups that was a psychologist, me as a psychologist and then an SLP, and like having those multidisciplinary approach, like those kind of things, I really end goal would like those opportunities. But like you said, it takes a while and knowing that you have it and it's out there and an option is really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really taken like being able to have an office space that has this kind of setup that we have.
Yeah.
To be able to really do that. Because before, even though I had people, we were never together. We were always just like, oh, you're in the office. Now I'm in the office. Now she's in the office,
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm in our Temecula location is a really great building, and like a lot of people stay, and when they grow, they move into like an open suite.
Yeah.
And so I've seen that and I'm like, okay, I noticed you moved from across the way from me and now you have this whole suite downstairs. I'm going to put that away as my goal for, a certain time in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Temecula is probably a good area to do this because it's pretty small, right?
Yeah. So it's actually, fortunately, because I live here, so it works out great. Days I'm in the office wise, I don't have to commute as much as San Diego, but there are not a lot of resources, and the community of Temecula has really changed in the last 5 years. Like I would say a lot of them are kind of like us, where we moved from San Diego, Orange County, or LA, and they're used to these resources and amenities. And then they move here and they're like, hello, like there's nothing. And, insurance covered providers are booked or far and few. And so, a lot of parents are like, well, I'm going to have to wait 8 months for this, or I have to drive to Riverside because it's the closest counselor. Like, I'll just pay you and come down the street. And, they get a different level of that boutique service that we offer. And so I've had a lot of families looking for that. And, I was taught in like a business seminar I took that like, if you do consults, 60% of the people should book with you. And if 80% or more book with you, then your prices are too low. And so I try to take like, pieces of that. And, I wouldn't say that parents have let like the pricing be the reason if they know that's what they want for their child. Yeah. Like, I try to keep my prices comparable. Like, I want to make things as affordable as they can while also doing what I need to do for my family and business. But I think families are really looking for that in this community. And I'm actually in the process of starting a networking group up here because there's like so many I'm a part of in San Diego. And then I joined an MFT group actually up here because I was like, there's nobody and I'm social and I like to talk to people.
Yeah.
And then I'm starting one. We have like an ABA therapist, an educational specialist, an advocate, an SLP. And so an MFT. So we're all like, my goal is to start a group up here so that we can all cross refer and start that relationship. Because parents are looking for not just my services or, speech. It's a lot of like overlap. Like Absolutely. In my reports, we're often referring like parents to go to a SLP or OT or, ABA or whatever's applicable for their child. And I just want to know where all the good people are in Temecula. So I want to get them all together.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Well, I think we are running out of time. So Meredith, thank you so much for being on the show, for telling us about Empower Child Learning. And we'll have all of Meredith's contact information, and she's on a bunch of Facebook groups as well. So you can feel free to look her up, but we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Empower LEP Collaborative Podcast. Episodes can be found at empowerlepcollaborative.com. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, or if you have any questions for us, don't hesitate to connect. We would love to learn more. Jana can be found at jana@empowerlep.com, and Bethany can be reached at bethany@lepcollaborative.com.